Have you ever wondered how the most powerful person in the world gets around? It's not just fancy cars and private jets. We're talking secret tunnels, fake schedules, and even notifying enemy countries. Yeah, it's that wild. The president's travel isn't just about luxury, it's a matter of national security and global politics. Every move is planned down to the second with backup plans. The Secret Service is always on high alert because one wrong step could be a disaster. But here's the thing, the ways they keep the president safe are gonna blow your mind. We're talking about cars that can survive bomb blasts, planes that are basically flying fortresses, and security teams that make Navy SEALs look like mall cops. And that's just the start. Stick around, because we're about to uncover some seriously shocking details about how the leader of the free world travels. Trust me, it's way crazier than you think. The $755 million price tag. All that fancy security comes with a price tag that'll make your jaw drop. Ever wonder how much it costs to keep the most powerful person in the world safe and on the move? Let's just say it's enough to make a billionaire blush. We're about to break down some numbers that'll blow your mind. The US president's lifestyle ain't cheap. In fact, it's so expensive that it makes some Hollywood celebs look like they're living on a budget. We're talking about a whopping $755,580,000 dedicated to running the presidency in 2023 alone. That's right, over $750 million. But wait, it gets even crazier when you break it down. Think about this. That massive budget translates to $2,070,079 per day. Yeah, you heard that right. The president's daily expenses are more than what most people earn in a lifetime. But hold on, because we're not done yet. If you want to get real specific, it comes down to $86,254 per hour. That's some serious cash being spent every single minute. Now you might be thinking, no way that's justified. But here's the thing. The president ain't just any regular Joe. They're the go-to person for quick decisions that can change the course of history. That's why all this money goes into making sure they're safe, connected, and ready to act at a moment's notice. Let's put this in perspective. Before the president even shows up for work, American taxpayers have already spent about $3,593. That's more than some folks make in a month. And get this, the annual budget for the presidency is so big, it's actually more than the entire budget of some countries. Yeah, you read that right. Some nations are running on less cash than what it takes to keep the US president going for a year. But here's where it gets interesting. All this money ain't just for fancy dinners and comfy chairs. Nah, it's about creating a mobile command center that can go anywhere, anytime. We're talking about transforming regular places into secure zones in a matter of hours. It's about having a fleet of vehicles that can withstand anything from bullets to bombs. And don't even get me started on the air travel situation. That's a whole other expensive level. The Secret Service isn't playing around when it comes to presidential security. Teams of people work around the clock, planning routes, checking locations, and making sure every detail is perfect. All that planning and manpower costs serious money. But here's the kicker. Even with this massive price tag, some experts say it might actually be worth it. Why? Because when you're talking about the safety of the leader of the free world, you can't really put a price on it. One wrong move, one security breach, and we could be looking at a global crisis. The beast. When it comes to protecting the president, no expense is spared. But what if I told you there's a vehicle so secure, it's practically a fortress on wheels? Welcome to the Beast, a car that's more tank than limo. You thought the president's ride was just some fancy car. Nah, it's way more than that. We're talking about a 9-ton monster that's built to withstand just about anything. This ain't your average limo. It's a mobile bunker designed to keep the most powerful person in the world safe no matter what. Let's break it down. The Beast weighs in at a whopping 9 tons. That's like the weight of 2 elephants. But all that weight ain't just for show. It's packed with features that'll blow your mind. First up, those windows. They're not just any old glass. We're talking 5-inch thick ballistic glass that can stop bullets in their tracks. Ain't no one getting through that. But the Beast ain't just about keeping bullets out. It's got everything the president might need in an emergency. Oxygen tanks? Check. Medical equipment? You bet. It even carries the president's blood type, just in case. This car is ready for anything, from a minor scrape to a full-on disaster. Now you might be thinking, okay, cool car, but what about all the other folks that travel with the president? Well, the beast ain't rolling solo. It's part of a massive motorcade that's like a small army on wheels. We're talking over 50 vehicles and around 150 people, all working together to keep the president safe. That's more vehicles than some small towns have. But here's where it gets really interesting. The beast ain't built like your regular car. Nope, it's actually built on a truck chassis. That means it's tougher and more secure than any limo you've ever seen. It's like they took a tank and gave it a fancy makeover. Air Force One. Now, you might think all that security ends when the president leaves the ground, but here's the kicker. It's just the beginning. Air Force One ain't just a plane, it's a flying command center that makes sure the president's always got his finger on the pulse of the nation, no matter where he is. We're talking about a plane that's basically a White House with wings. This ain't your average private jet. Air Force One is decked out with everything the president needs to run the country from 30,000 feet in the air. It's got a full kitchen, office space, and even an executive dining room. The president can have a 5-star meal while signing important documents and making world-changing decisions. But the real magic of Air Force One is in its communication systems. This plane is so high-tech, it can handle anything from a quick call to the Pentagon to a full-on video conference with world leaders. The president's never out of touch, even when they're flying over the middle of nowhere. And get this, Air Force One ain't just one plane. There's actually 2 of them. Yeah, you heard that right. They keep a second identical plane as a backup, because when you're the leader of the free world, you can't risk being grounded because of some technical issue. These planes are so advanced they can fly at speeds up to 600 miles per hour. That's faster than some commercial airliners, and they can go for 7,800 miles without needing to refuel. That's like flying from New York to Tokyo without stopping. But speed ain't the only thing Air Force One's got going for it. This plane is built like a fortress. It's got all sorts of secret defense systems to keep the president safe. We're talking about tech that can jam enemy radar and even shake off heat-seeking missiles. It's like something out of a spy movie, but it's all real. And the security don't stop there. When Air Force One is in the air, it's got its own airspace. Other planes gotta keep their distance. It's like the president's got their own private sky. But here's the thing that really sets Air Force One apart. It's designed to keep the president in charge no matter what's happening on the ground. If there's a crisis back home, the president can handle it from the plane. They've got all the tools they need to make big decisions and keep the country running smooth. Think about it. The president could be halfway around the world, but with Air Force One, it's like they never left the Oval Office. They can get real-time updates, talk to their team, and even address the nation if they need to. It's like having a mobile command center that can go anywhere in the world. There's a medical suite on board with a doctor always ready. The president's got their own private quarters to rest up between meetings. There's even a gym so they can stay in shape during long flights. Marine One. The commander-in-chief's got a whole squad of look-alike helicopters. It's like a high-stakes shell game, but instead of cups, we're talking about multi-million-dollar choppers. Welcome to the world of Marine One, the president's personal helicopter fleet. But here's the thing. It ain't just one chopper. Nah, we're talking about 5 identical helicopters, all ready to go at a moment's notice. Why so many? Well, it's all part of a crazy security plan that'll blow your mind. See, when the president needs to make a quick trip, they don't just hop in any old helicopter. They've got a whole fleet to choose from, and that's where things get interesting. The Secret Service uses these identical choppers to play a real-life game of guess which one the president's in. It's like those street performers with the cups and the ball, but way more high-tech and with way higher stakes. This ain't just about looking fancy. Nah, it's a serious security tactic. By using multiple identical helicopters, it becomes super hard for anyone with bad intentions to figure out which one's actually carrying the president. It's all about confusion and misdirection, keeping potential threats guessing and off balance. But don't think this is just some random guessing game. Everything about Marine One and how it operates is planned down to the tiniest detail. When the president travels, these helicopters work together in a way that looks like a carefully choreographed dance. They take off and land in different patterns, switch positions mid-air, and do all sorts of fancy maneuvers to keep everyone guessing. And get this, it ain't just about the helicopters themselves. The whole operation around Marine One is a massive undertaking. We're talking about teams of highly trained pilots, mechanics, and security personnel all working together to make sure everything goes smooth. It's like a small army, all focused on one thing: keeping the president safe and sound. Now, you might be thinking, all this for a short helicopter ride. But here's the thing. When you're talking about the President of the United States, there's no such thing as a simple trip. Every single time they step out of the White House, it's a major security operation. And that includes those quick hops in Marine One, the Secret Service. Picture this, a fleet of identical cars, each one bulletproof and packed with more tech than a spy movie. But which one's got the real deal inside? That's the kind of question the Secret Service deals with every day. These guys ain't just about looking tough in suits and shades. They're the ultimate personal bodyguards, ready to take a bullet for the president at any moment. The Secret Service plays a huge role in how the president travels. They're not just along for the ride, they're the ones making sure everything goes smooth. Every trip, whether it's across town or across the world, is planned out like a military operation. They've got eyes everywhere, always on the lookout for anything suspicious. Now let's talk about this thing they call the secure package. It's not just a fancy name for the president's ride. Nah, it's a whole system designed to keep the big boss safe. The motorcade ain't just a bunch of cars following each other. It's a carefully planned formation with multiple identical limos. Why? Because if some bad guy's trying to target the president, they won't know which car to aim for. But it ain't just about the cars. The Secret Service agents themselves are like something out of an action movie. These folks are trained to react to any situation in a split second. They're always scanning the crowd, always on high alert. And get this, they're not just there to look tough. These agents are ready to put their lives on the line to protect the president. The crazy thing is, all this intense security allows the president to focus on their job. While the Secret Service is out there watching for threats, the president can concentrate on running the country. It's like having the world's most intense personal assistant team, but instead of fetching coffee, they're keeping you alive. And it's not just when the president's on the move. The Secret Service is on duty 24/7, 365 days a year. Even when the president's chilling at the White House, these guys are there, always watching, always ready. It's a job that never stops because threats to the president don't take days off. But here's the thing, all this security ain't just about keeping one person safe, it's about making sure the country keeps running smooth no matter what. If something happens to the president, that's a big deal for the whole nation. So these Secret Service agents, they're not just protecting a person, they're protecting the whole idea of American democracy. Advanced teams. These folks plan every single detail like they're trying to prevent the next global conflict. They're called advanced teams, and their job is so intense, it's like playing chess with the world as they're bored. These advanced teams ain't just your average travel agents. They're the ones making sure everything's perfect before the president even steps foot in a new place. And when I say everything, I mean everything. From security to schedules, these guys got it all covered. But here's the thing. Their work ain't just about making sure the president's comfortable. Nah, it's way more serious than that. These advanced teams are literally planning trips where one wrong move could start World War III. That's the kind of pressure they're under every single day. So what do these advanced teams actually do? Well, they're like the ultimate planners. They coordinate with local authorities to set up secure locations. They're figuring out every single detail of the president's movements. And they're doing all this while trying to keep everything under wraps. Think about it. When you see the president show up somewhere and it looks all spontaneous and easy, that's all thanks to these advanced teams. They've been working for weeks, sometimes even months, to make sure everything goes off without a hitch. But it ain't just about planning the big stuff. These teams are looking at every little detail. They're checking out every building the president might enter. They're planning out every route the motorcade might take. They're even figuring out where the president's gonna eat and sleep. And get this, they're not just planning one route or one schedule, they're planning multiple options for everything. Because when you're dealing with the president's safety, you gotta have backup plans for your backup plans. But here's where it gets really wild. These advanced teams ain't just planning for what they know is gonna happen. They're also trying to plan for every possible thing that could go wrong. Natural disasters, security threats, you name it. They've got a plan for it. And all this planning, it's what makes those presidential trips look so smooth on TV. When you see the president shaking hands with world leaders or giving speeches in foreign countries, That's all thanks to the hard work of these advanced teams. The Flying Fortress. You might think the president just borrows a car when he lands in a new country. But nah, that's not how it works. The US president's travel game is so next level, his cars get their own private jet. Yeah, you heard that right. We're talking about a massive C-17 Globemaster cargo plane that's dedicated to hauling around the president's ride. This ain't just any old plane. The C-17 Globemaster is a beast of an aircraft, capable of carrying some serious weight. It's like a flying garage, specially designed to transport the president's entire motorcade. We're talking about the Beast, those identical decoy limos, and all the support vehicles. It's like they're moving a whole car dealership across the globe. But why go through all this trouble? Because when you're the leader of the free world, you can't just show up in a rental. The president needs his own secure vehicles, no matter where he goes. It's all about maintaining that bulletproof security, even on foreign soil. And get this, it ain't just about having the cars there. It's about having them ready to roll the moment Air Force One touches down. That means the C-17 and its precious cargo gotta arrive way before the president does. It's like sending your luggage ahead, but instead of a suitcase, it's a fleet of armored vehicles. The logistics behind this operation are insane. We're talking about a team of people working round the clock to make sure everything's in place. They gotta coordinate with local authorities, figure out storage, and make sure the vehicles are prepped and ready to go. It's like planning a military invasion, but instead of troops, they're moving cars. And it ain't just about the Beast and its decoys. The C-17 can also carry the President's Marine One helicopters. Yeah, those choppers we talked about earlier, they get the first-class treatment too. It's like the President's bringing his whole transportation system with him wherever he goes. But here's where it gets really wild. This whole operation happens for every single foreign trip the president makes. Whether it's a quick hop to Canada or a long-haul flight to Asia, that C-17 is always out there, making sure the president's wheels are ready and waiting. Think about the coordination this takes. While the president's still back in DC planning his trip, that C-17 is already loading up and getting ready to fly. It's got to time everything perfectly so the cars are in place and ready to go before Air Force One even takes off. The price of a presidential trip. All that fancy transportation comes with a price tag. Ever wondered how much it costs taxpayers just to get the president from DC to New York? The answer might make your wallet cry. We're talking about a cool $5,700 for a single leg of the trip, and that ain't even counting the return journey. Yeah, you heard that right. A quick hop that'd cost you or me a couple $100 on a commercial flight sets Uncle Sam back thousands. But here's the thing. That $5,700 ain't just for a seat on a plane. Nah, it's covering a whole lot more. We're talking security, logistics, and all sorts of special arrangements to keep the president safe and ready to work. It's like moving a whole office, complete with bulletproof everything and a team of people ready for anything. Think about it. When the president travels, it ain't just about getting from point A to point B. Every move's got to be planned out like a military operation. They've got to secure the route, check out every building along the way, and make sure there's a backup plan for the backup plan. And all that planning? It costs money, lots of it. Now you might be thinking, that's crazy expensive for such a short trip. But here's the deal. When you're moving the most powerful person in the world, you can't cut corners. Every detail's got to be perfect, because one little slip-up could turn into a major problem real quick. And get this, that $5,700 price tag, that's just for a routine trip. We're talking about a journey the president probably makes all the time. Imagine what it costs when they're heading overseas or to some big international summit. The costs just keep piling up. But it ain't just about the money. This whole setup shows just how complex presidential travel really is. It ain't like the president can just hop in a car and go. Every trip, no matter how short, needs a ton of planning and resources. It's like organizing a small parade every time the president needs to go somewhere. And here's something else to think about. All this expense ain't just about keeping the president comfy. It's about making sure they can do their job, no matter where they are. That means having all the right equipment, all the right people, and all the right security measures in place. It's like moving a mini White House every time the president travels. The daily routine. What if I told you the most powerful person in the world starts their day just like you, with breakfast? Except their bacon and eggs come with a hefty side of top secret information. The president's daily routine ain't your average 9 to 5. It's a carefully orchestrated dance of security, efficiency, and non-stop work. Let's break it down. The day kicks off around 7 a.m. with breakfast and a workout. But this ain't just any old morning meal. The president's eating while getting briefed on the latest world events. Talk about multitasking. Then comes the real deal, the 9 a.m. daily briefing. This ain't your typical morning meeting. We're talking about a rundown of the most critical intelligence and national security info. The president's got to be ready to make world-changing decisions before most folks have even had their second cup of coffee. But here's the thing, the president ain't running this show alone. They've got a right-hand person called the Chief of Staff. This guy's like the ultimate personal assistant, but with way more power. They're managing the whole White House operation, making sure everything runs smooth as butter. Now you might be thinking, okay, but how's all this different from any other important job? Well, let me tell you, everything the president does is planned down to the minute. They can't just decide to take a walk or grab a burger. Every move's got to be cleared by security. And get this, even the president's office commute is next level. We're talking secret tunnels and bulletproof vehicles. It's like something out of a spy movie, but it's just another day for the commander-in-chief. But it ain't all serious business. The president's schedule's also got to include time for calls with foreign leaders, meetings with Congress folks, and even some public events. It's a balancing act between running the country and being the face of the nation. And don't forget about all the paperwork. The president's got to sign off on laws, executive orders, and all sorts of official documents. It's like having the world's most important homework every single day. High-stakes history. Yeah, you heard that right. Being president ain't just about running the country, it's about staying alive while doing it. And when it comes to presidential travel, history's got some pretty dark chapters. Did you know that 2 out of 4 US presidents who've been assassinated were killed while they were out and about? That's a scary stat. We're talking about James A. Garfield and John F. Kennedy. These guys weren't taken out in some high-security bunker. Nah, they were just trying to do their job, meeting the people and running the country. Garfield was shot at a train station in Washington, D.C. back in 1881. He was just minding his business, getting ready to head out on a trip. And Kennedy? We all know what happened in Dallas in 1963. He was riding in an open-top car, waving to the crowds. Both times the bad guys took advantage of the president being out in public. These tragedies ain't just sad stories from the history books. They've had a massive impact on how presidents travel today. After losing 2 leaders to assassins, the government realized they needed to step up their game big time when it came to protecting the president. That's why we've got all this crazy security now. The Beast ain't just a cool car. It's a response to the very real danger presidents face when they're on the move. Those bulletproof windows and armored doors? They're there because history showed us what can happen when the president's exposed. And it ain't just about the car. Remember how we talked about those advanced teams planning every little detail of a presidential trip? That's all part of making sure what happened to Garfield and Kennedy never happens again. They're checking every route, every building, every person who might get close to the president. Even Air Force One, with all its high-tech gadgets and defense systems, is a result of these past tragedies. The government realized that the president needs to be protected no matter where they are, on the ground or in the air. But here's the thing. All this security ain't just about keeping one person safe, it's about protecting the whole idea of American democracy. When a president gets killed, it's not just a personal tragedy, it shakes the whole country to its core. That's why they take it so seriously. And get this, the Secret Service, those guys in suits and shades we talked about earlier, they weren't always responsible for protecting the president. It was only after President McKinley was assassinated in 1901 that they got that job. Before that, the president was pretty much on his own when it came to security, secret trips. Speaking of risks, there's one presidential journey that makes all others look like a walk in the park. How does a president visit a country at war without detection? The answer involves a luxury train, advance warning to an enemy, and a whole lot of nerve. President Biden pulled off a trip so secret, it's changing the game of presidential travel. We're talking about his visit to Ukraine in 2023. This wasn't just any old diplomatic mission. Nah, this was a high-stakes move that had everyone holding their breath. Here's the deal. Biden went to Ukraine without any American troops on the ground. That's right, no US military presence. In the world of presidential security, that's like skydiving without a parachute. It's never been done before. This trip was so off the charts, it's got people rethinking what's possible when it comes to presidential travel. But how'd they pull it off? Well, it all started with a crazy idea. Tell Russia what was going down. Yeah, you heard that right. They actually gave the Russians a heads up. It's like telling the opposing team your game plan before the match. But here's the thing, it worked. By letting Russia know, they reduced the risk of any accidents happening during the trip. Now you might be thinking, okay, but how'd he get there? Air Force One's kinda hard to miss. Well, that's where things get really interesting. Instead of flying in on his usual ride, Biden took a train. But this wasn't just any old locomotive. We're talking about a modified luxury train, decked out to transport world leaders on the down low. This train journey was something else. It took about 10 hours to cover 400 miles. That's a long time when you're the president sneaking into a war zone. And get this, they had 3 American surveillance aircraft keeping an eye on things the whole way. It's like having your own personal spy planes making sure the coast is clear. The whole operation was planned tighter than a drum. Everything was hush-hush. They even put restrictions on the press to keep things under wraps. And instead of rolling with his usual big crew, Biden kept his traveling party small. Less people means less chance of someone spilling the beans. But here's what really makes this trip stand out. Biden didn't just show up for a quick photo op. Nah, he was there to do real work. He met with President Zelensky and even laid a wreath at a memorial. All this while, air raid sirens were going off in the background. Tech on the go. What if I told you the leader of the free world carries a phone that could survive a bomb blast? The gadgets protecting the president make James Bond look like he's playing with toys. The president's travel gear ain't just about looking cool. It's about staying connected and protected no matter what. We're talking about tech that's so advanced, it's like having a mobile command center wherever the president goes. First up, let's talk about those surveillance planes. When the president's on the move, they've got eyes in the sky watching everything. During that secret Ukraine trip, they had 3 American surveillance aircraft keeping tabs on things. That's some serious air power just to make sure the coast is clear. But it ain't just about watching from above. The president's got a whole mobile command center that goes wherever they do. It's like they've got the entire White House packed into a suitcase. This setup lets them stay in touch with all the important folks back home, no matter where they are in the world. And get this, they've even got a special mobile tower called Roadrunner that's part of the motorcade. This thing's job is to make sure the president's always got a signal. It's like having your own personal cell tower following you around. No more dropped calls for the commander-in-chief. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what happens if things really hit the fan? Well, that's where it gets really interesting. The president's communication systems are built to handle some serious threats. We're talking about tech that can keep working even if things go nuclear. It's like they've got a hotline to the rest of the world that just won't quit. But all this fancy tech ain't just for show. It's about making sure the president can do their job from anywhere. Think about it. The leader of the free world can't just go offline because they're traveling. They need to be ready to make big decisions at a moment's notice, whether they're in the Oval Office or halfway around the world. The bigger picture. When the president hops on Air Force One, it's not just another flight. It's like moving a piece on a global chessboard. Every trip, every meeting, every handshake, it all matters on the world stage. And that's why all that crazy security and high-tech gear is so important. Think about it. The president showing up in a war zone like Ukraine, that's sending a message to the whole world. It's saying, we're here, we're committed, and we ain't backing down. That kind of move can change the game overnight, but it ain't just about making big statements. Presidential travel is all about balance. The president's gotta be safe, but they also gotta be seen. They need to shake hands, give speeches, and look people in the eye. It's like trying to be a rock star and a secret agent at the same time. And get this, sometimes the president's gotta take risks, like that secret trip to Ukraine. No US troops on the ground, just the president rolling into a war zone on a train. That's some serious nerve. But that's what it takes to show America means business. All this travel stuff ain't just for show. It's about keeping America in the game. When the president visits a country, it's like giving that relationship a power boost. It's saying, you're important to us. And in the world of global politics, that kind of FaceTime is gold. But here's where it gets tricky. The president can't just pop up anywhere they want. Every trip's got to be planned down to the second. They got to think about security, diplomacy, and even how it's going to look on TV. It's like planning a wedding, a military operation, and a TV show all at once. And it ain't just about the big trips. Even when the president's just hopping over to New York, it's a big deal. Every move's got to be perfect. Because one little slip-up could turn into a major headache for the whole country. That's why the president's got all those advance teams and security folks. They're not just there to look tough, they're making sure everything goes smooth. Because when the president travels, it ain't just about one person. It's about representing the whole country. And let's not forget about all that high-tech gear. The president being able to make calls from anywhere in the world, that ain't just cool gadget stuff. It's about being ready for anything. If something big goes down, the president needs to be able to handle it, whether they're in the Oval Office or on the other side of the planet. But here's the thing, all this travel and security stuff costs a ton of money. We're talking millions of dollars for just one trip. Some folks might say that's too much, but when you think about what's at stake, it starts to make sense. The president ain't just any traveler, they're carrying the weight of the whole country with them.